Jared had never imagined that his first mission beyond Earth would lead him to a palace that seemed made of light. The planet Varelia glowed under twin suns, its cities floating in the sky, connected by bridges that shimmered like glass. Every step he took felt unreal, as if he had walked into a dream painted by someone who knew nothing of human limits. Yet here he was, a simple human explorer, surrounded by beings taller than men, with skin that changed color in the light and eyes that sparkled like stars. He had come to deliver supplies and observe, but already he felt out of place. His clothes looked dull among the flowing robes of alien nobles, and his awkward attempts to bow or greet in their language earned curious looks. Jared felt small, like a child lost in a festival of giants, but he tried to smile, reminding himself that humans had always adapted and that courage often came dressed as clumsiness. Then he saw her, Princess Lyria. She floated down the palace steps as if the air itself wanted to carry her. Her skin shimmered a soft silver. Her hair fell like a river of light, and her eyes glowed like twin moons. Every being in the room seemed to pause. Even the chatter of the crowd dimmed, as if the palace itself was holding its breath. Jared froze, unable to look away. He had read about alien royalty, seen depictions in reports and simulations, but nothing prepared him for the presence of someone so real, so magnetic that the air around her seemed warmer, brighter. He moved forward cautiously, not wanting to intrude, but fate had other plans. A sudden collision, a startled step, and Jared bumped into Lyria. The drink in her hand tipped, spilling a liquid that sparkled like liquid light over her flowing robes. Gasps echoed through the hall. Jared's heart stopped. His mind scrambled for words. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me," he stammered, his voice shaking. He grabbed napkins, his hands trembling, trying to clean the mess, but it only seemed to make things worse. Lyria looked at him. Her eyes widened in surprise, then a small, amused smile curved her lips. She did not scold him, nor did she seem angry. Instead, there was something gentle in her gaze, something that made Jared's chest tighten. In a desperate attempt to ease the tension, to make her see he meant no harm, he blurted out the words without thinking. Will you, marry me?" The hall went silent. Jared's stomach dropped. He wanted to take it back, to explain, to vanish into the floor, but Lyria's eyes did not harden. She did not laugh cruelly. She tilted her head, studying him as if trying to see into his very soul, and then, to Jared's utter shock, she said, "Yes." Time seemed to stop. The noise of the palace faded. Jared felt his knees weaken. Did she mean it? Could she understand that he had only spoken in panic and embarrassment, in that strange human mix of fear and hope? He opened his mouth to explain, to tell her he wasn't serious, but Lyria's soft, melodic voice stopped him before a word escaped. "I know exactly what you meant," she said, her smile growing warmer. "And I like that you were brave enough to say it." Jared's mind reeled. He had been laughed at before. On Earth, humans were often seen as naive, fragile, or laughable. In the galaxy, many aliens considered humans weak. Yet here, an alien princess, the most powerful, respected being in this palace, had chosen him. Not because of his status, not because of skill or wealth, but because of something she saw in his spirit. For the first time in his life, Jared felt proud to be human. Not proud in arrogance, but proud in the quiet, fierce way that humans often survived against impossible odds. Somehow, in this single accidental moment, he realized that humanity's strength was not just in technology or numbers, but in courage, in heart, in the willingness to stand tall even when the whole universe seemed to loom above you. And as he looked into Lyria's glowing eyes, Jared felt a strange warmth spread through him, a mix of fear, awe, and something he had never felt before. Hope. Whatever came next, he knew life on Varelia had just changed forever, and somehow, just somehow, he could not imagine turning back. Jared could barely breathe. The words "yes" echoed in his mind like a sound that didn't belong to reality. He had not meant to propose, at least not seriously. Yet here he was, standing in the middle of a grand alien palace, holding hands with the most astonishing being he had ever seen. And she had accepted. His thoughts raced like comets. How could this happen? Was this real? Was he dreaming? He tried to pull his hand back to explain, to make her understand that it had been a slip of the tongue, a foolish human mistake. I didn't mean... he started, stammering, his face burning. But Lyria only shook her head slightly, her smile soft and patient. "I know exactly what you meant," she said again, her voice like wind chimes in a quiet garden. "And bravery deserves respect." Jared felt his heart hammering, a mix of panic and awe. Brave? He had been terrified, clumsy, out of place. Yet somehow that fear, human fear, the kind that makes one leap into the unknown, had become a kind of courage in her eyes. Somehow that had made her choose him. The room around him slowly returned to noise. Courtiers whispered in astonishment. Some gasped, others chuckled nervously. Jared could feel their eyes on him, judging, curious, even mocking. He wished he could shrink into nothing, disappear behind the curtains or under a chair. But he couldn't. Lyria's presence held him steady, as if her calm confidence was a force field against his chaos. Over the next hours, he found himself swept into alien customs he could barely comprehend. Every gesture mattered, every word had weight. When they walked together through the palace gardens, he stumbled on alien plants that glowed softly beneath their feet, tripped over floating steps, and mispronounced dozens of greetings. And every time Lyria laughed softly, her melodic voice soothing his nerves. She never scolded him, never made him feel small. Instead, she held his hand, guided him, and sometimes just looked at him with a smile that seemed to say, "You belong here." Jared learned quickly that life with a princess was not easy. Nobles whispered in corners, their voices thin with doubt. "A human?" one hissed. "He cannot understand our ways. He is not royal. He is not worthy." Jared felt their judgment like icy fingers, and for a moment he wanted to retreat. But Lyria never let him falter. "Ignore them," she said softly. "Humans have a strength no one can teach." Strength. The word burned in his mind. He had always known humans were underestimated. On Earth, humans had survived disasters, wars, and impossible odds. Across the galaxy, many aliens laughed at humans, dismissed them as weak. But here, standing beside Lyria, he realized that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage. Humans thrived where others doubted. Humans survived where others failed. And maybe, just maybe, humans could change the hearts of even the most powerful beings in the galaxy. By the end of the day, Jared had a strange sense of belonging. The panic of the first proposal was fading, replaced by wonder. He marveled at Lyria's world, the glowing gardens, the floating spires, the gentle alien music that filled the halls. And more than that, he marveled at her. She was not just a princess. She was a person, wise and kind, brave and gentle, and she had chosen him. That night, alone in his small human quarters within the palace, Jared stared out at the twin moons of Verelia. The city below sparkled like a river of stars, and he could still feel the warmth of her hand in his. His mind replayed her words over and over. "I know exactly what you meant, and I like that you were brave enough to say it." He smiled a little nervously, but with a spark of something new inside him. Hope. Hope that maybe humans really were more than what the galaxy thought. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he could rise to this challenge, not as an alien diplomat or a noble knight, but as a human. Imperfect, clumsy, but fearless when it mattered most. And in that moment, Jared knew one truth that would guide him through the days ahead. Life on Verelia would never be simple, but it could be extraordinary. All it required was courage, and humans had that in abundance. Jared quickly realized that being accepted by Princess Lyria did not mean he understood her world. The palace was a maze of beauty and complexity, each hallway filled with statues that seemed to breathe, each room humming with quiet energy. Nobles in flowing robes moved gracefully, their every gesture precise, every word carefully measured. And there he was, clumsy, loud, and distinctly human, trying to keep up. The first day of lessons in etiquette was a disaster. Jared mispronounced greetings, nearly knocked over a floating vase, and tripped on a carpet that seemed to move beneath his feet. Each mistake drew polite gasps, some whispers, and more than a few raised eyebrows. For a moment he wanted to retreat, hide in the kitchens, or vanish into thin air. But Lyria was patient. She took his hand and guided him, her fingers warm, her touch steady. "It's okay," she said softly. "You are learning. That is what matters." Her encouragement surprised him. Humans were often told to hide mistakes, to blend in, to avoid attention. But here, in the palace of Verelia, Lyria valued effort over perfection. She saw his sincerity, His honesty and even his awkwardness seemed to charm her. For the first time, Jared felt that his human ways, clumsy, stubborn, bold, were not flaws but a kind of strength. Over the next few days, he faced a series of trials. He had to master alien customs, from the delicate way to bow before the council to the precise method of handling ceremonial artifacts. He had to learn the language of Viralia, not just words, but the tones and music of Mai. In every sentence, some of the nobles watched him with thinly veiled disdain, clearly doubting that a human could ever succeed in their world. And yet, Jared persisted. Each mistake became a lesson, each stumble a step forward. Lyria often stayed by his side, quietly correcting him, sharing her own stories of learning as a child. Slowly, he began to understand more than just the rules. He began to feel the rhythm of her world, the flow of its beauty and the weight of its responsibilities. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens glowing softly under the twin moons, Jared looked at Lyria and realized something he had not expected. He was falling in love, not just with the idea of a princess or the grandeur of this alien world, but with her courage, her patience, her wisdom, and the way she saw potential in a human like him. And somehow she had chosen him, despite all the differences, despite all the doubts. But palace life was not without its dangers. Whispers and sideways glances reminded him that not everyone accepted him. Some nobles openly questioned his presence, calling him unfit, weak, or foolish. Jared felt their judgment like a heavy weight, but instead of retreating, he focused on the one thing he could control: his own actions, his own heart, and the trust Lyria had placed in him. It was a strange lesson in human resilience. On Earth, humans survived disasters, wars, and impossibly difficult situations because they never gave up. Here, on an alien planet surrounded by beings who doubted him, Jared realized that the same courage still applied. Humans were underestimated, yes, but sometimes that was their greatest advantage. By the end of the week, Jared had grown in ways he never imagined. He could navigate the palace halls without tripping, greet nobles without embarrassment, and even handle small ceremonial duties without disaster. More importantly, he began to earn quiet respect. Not from everyone, but from those who noticed his determination, his honesty, and the bravery that had led him to stand beside a princess and never falter. As he lay in his quarters that night, staring at the softly glowing gardens outside his window, Jared reflected on the lesson of the week. Being human in an alien world was difficult, terrifying, and often humiliating, but it was also remarkable. And with Princess Lyria by his side, teaching, guiding, and trusting him, he realized that perhaps humans could not only survive here, they could thrive, and even change the hearts of those who once doubted them. For the first time, Jared understood that being brave was not about perfection. It was about showing up, trying, and never giving up, even when the world seemed impossible. And in that truth, he felt a spark of hope, a promise that their story, his story with Lyria, was only beginning. The palace of Viralia had never felt so tense. A warning alarm echoed through the grand halls, vibrating against walls that had glowed peacefully only moments before. Jared's heart pounded as he followed Princess Lyria and her advisors to the observation deck. Outside, the sky was filled with dark shapes, an enemy fleet approaching, moving with deadly precision. Their intent was clear: conquer Viralia and claim its resources. The room buzzed with fear. Lyria's advisors whispered frantic calculations, discussing evacuation plans and defenses. Many faces turned pale. Jared felt the weight of the moment. He was just a human, inexperienced in alien warfare, but he could not stand idle. Something inside him, the quiet stubbornness of humanity, the courage of countless generations, pushed him forward. He leaned over the holographic display of the fleet, scanning the patterns and movements. The advisors shook their heads. "It's impossible," one said. "We cannot stop them." Jared swallowed hard, his throat dry, but he spoke. "You're looking at this wrong," he said, pointing to gaps in the formation. "If we can use your drones in a specific way, we can disable their engines before they reach the city." "It's risky, but it could work." The room fell silent. Lyria turned to him, her glowing eyes searching his face. "You believe this can succeed?" she asked softly. "I do," Jared said, trying to sound confident even as his chest tightened with fear. "But we have to act fast. If we hesitate, they will be here in minutes." Some advisors scowled. A human dares to instruct us? One hissed. But Lyria placed a hand on Jared's shoulder, steadying him. Listen to him, she said firmly. Humans have a different kind of thinking. One we often underestimate. He may be right. Jared felt a mixture of pride and terror. Pride because Lyria believed in him. Terror because he knew the lives of countless beings rested on his suggestion. But he didn't back down. He moved through the palace, giving instructions to the drone operators, using gestures and clear commands. He felt the weight of every eye upon him, but he remembered the lesson he had learned in the past week. Courage was not about perfection, it was about showing up and trying. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Outside, the enemy fleet drew closer, their shadows casting darkness over the glowing city. Jared's hands shook, but he didn't stop. He coordinated the drones, aligning them with precision. It was risky. Any mistake could mean disaster, but his human instincts guided him. He had grown up solving problems under impossible odds. Humans adapted. Humans survived. And now that resilience was being tested on an alien battlefield. Then the attack began. Drones shot forward in a synchronized wave, striking the enemy fleet at their weak points. Explosions lit up the sky as engines failed and ships veered off course. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. The alien fleet faltered, unable to predict the unexpected tactics of a human mind. Jared's plan, though daring and unconventional, was working. Lyria watched from the observation deck, her eyes wide, her hand gripping Jared's tightly. You did it, she whispered, almost in disbelief. You saved us. Jared felt a wave of relief wash over him, mixed with exhaustion. But as he looked at her glowing face, he realized something more important. This moment, terrifying as it was, had shown him the truth of what humans could do. Underestimated, doubted, seen as weak. Humans could turn fear into strength, mistakes into opportunity, and desperation into victory. The enemy fleet retreated, their numbers shattered, their plans foiled. The palace erupted in cautious celebration. Nobles who had doubted him before now looked at him with awe. And Lyria, the princess who had trusted him from the start, smiled with pride, as if she had known all along that humans could rise to challenges no one expected. Jared stood there, chest still pounding, realizing that his accidental proposal had led him not just into a palace, but into the heart of a world that now depended on his courage, and somehow he knew that this was only the beginning. The sky above Viralia was a battlefield of light and shadow. Jared stood at the command console, heart pounding, eyes focused on the alien fleet that had dared to threaten the planet. Explosions scattered across the horizon as his plan unfolded. The drones moved with precision, striking at the enemy's weak points exactly as he had predicted. Every ship that faltered, every engine that failed, sent a ripple of hope through the palace and across the city. The citizens of Viralia watched from windows and balconies, their faces pale with fear and awe. They had always respected the princess, but now their eyes were drawn to a human standing beside her, guiding the defense with determination and courage. He was small in stature compared to the towering alien nobles, but his spirit loomed larger than any of them. Jared's hands moved with steady urgency. He issued commands, adjusted strategies, and calculated risks faster than any machine could. Every decision carried the weight of countless lives, and yet he did not falter. Fear surged, but it was tempered by something stronger, the instinct to survive, to protect, to rise above impossible odds. Humans had faced disasters on Earth, endured wars, and conquered the odds of nature itself. That same resilience now flowed through him, a quiet, unstoppable force. As the drones closed in on the enemy fleet, the ships began to falter. Engines exploded, ships spun out of control, and alien pilots screamed in confusion. The invaders had expected an easy victory. They had expected fear, hesitation, and surrender. Instead, they found a human mind that thought differently, acted unpredictably, and refused to be intimidated. Lyria stood beside him, her glowing presence a steady anchor. She did not need to say anything. Her eyes, full of trust and pride, spoke volumes. Jared felt a surge of courage at her side. He realized that her belief in him was more powerful than any weapon in the universe. Together they were a force no one had anticipated, a human and a princess united by trust and determination. The alien fleet began to retreat, disorganized and defeated. Their once confident movements turned desperate. Jared didn't allow them to regroup. He directed the drones to strategic positions, cutting off their escape and forcing them into surrender. Within moments, the threat had vanished, leaving the sky calm, the city safe, and the citizens of Veralia staring in disbelief. Cheers erupted throughout the palace. Nobles who had once doubted him rushed forward, offering respectful nods and cautious praise. "You've done what we thought impossible," one said. A human led the defense of Veralia. Jared shook his head, humbled, but could not hide a small, proud smile. He had not acted for glory. He had acted because it was necessary, because bravery demanded it, and because humans never gave up, even when the odds were stacked against them. Lyria ran toward him, tears glistening in her eyes, her voice trembling. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You saved my people. You saved Veralia." Jared felt emotion swell in his chest. Relief, awe, fear, pride, and something deeper, something he had not expected. Love. He had come to Veralia as a simple explorer, untested and unsure. Yet now he stood as a hero, a human who had defied expectations, a human whose courage had changed the course of a world. As the celebration continued, Jared looked around and realized that something remarkable had happened. The citizens of Veralia were no longer just cheering for a princess, they were cheering for humanity. For their resilience, their bravery, their unexpected brilliance. A species that had once been underestimated across the galaxy had proven its worth, not with overwhelming numbers, but with heart, with ingenuity, and with courage that refused to break. That night, as Jared and Lyria stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city, the twin moons reflecting in their eyes, he understood the truth of the moment. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a force of courage, strength, and heart. And somehow, against every expectation, he had played a part in showing the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. Lyria took his hand, holding it firmly. "You are extraordinary, Jared of Earth," she whispered. "And now so is your people." Jared looked at the city, at the palace, at the sky still smoldering with the remnants of battle, and smiled. He had stumbled into this life, accidentally proposed, and yet somehow it had led him to prove that humans could rise to any challenge. That night, hope burned brighter than the twin moons above, a promise that the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The days after the battle were unlike anything Jared had ever experienced. The palace buzzed with excitement, but also with cautious curiosity. Nobles whispered in corridors, some with admiration, others with skepticism. Yet through it all, Jared found himself growing more comfortable in a world that had once seemed impossible to navigate. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of Veralia, part of its story, and most importantly, part of Princess Lyria's life. Lyria became his guide, his teacher, and, unknowingly, his anchor. Together they walked through gardens that glowed softly beneath the twin moons, exploring hidden paths and secret fountains. She taught him the delicate customs of her people, not just words and gestures, but the feelings behind them. Jared listened, absorbing everything, sometimes stumbling but always trying, and every time he made a mistake, she laughed softly, the sound like music, and held his hand as if to say, "You are learning. You are human, and that is enough." Despite the lingering doubts of some nobles, Jared noticed the way the people began to look at him differently. Children ran up to him, curious and excited, asking questions about Earth, about humans, about the stories of bravery they had heard. Soldiers who had once doubted him now nodded in respect. Even the most critical nobles could not ignore the courage and ingenuity he had shown during the attack. He realized that his presence was changing minds, not through titles or wealth or skill in courtly dances, but through simple human determination, honesty, and heart. And yet, it wasn't just the people who were important. It was Lyria. With each passing day, Jared felt their bond deepen. He marveled at her courage in battle, her wisdom in decisions, and her patience in teaching him a world so different from his own. At the same time, she seemed fascinated by his humanity, his stubbornness, his humor, his ability to act despite fear, and his refusal to give up even when everything seemed impossible. It was a connection neither of them had expected, born of shared trust in the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. One evening, as they sat on the balcony overlooking the glowing city, Jared spoke quietly. "I never imagined I would be here with you in a world so different from Earth. And yet, I feel like I belong." Lyria looked at him, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "You do belong," she said. "Not because you are perfect, not because you understand everything, but because you are brave, honest, and true. You have shown everyone that humans are more than we thought. You have shown me what courage really is. Jared felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of pride and humility. He had come as an outsider, a human in a world that seemed impossibly alien, yet through effort, honesty, and heart, he had earned a place, not only in the palace, not only in Virelia's story, but in the heart of the princess he admired more than he could put into words. The palace was peaceful that night, but Jared knew that challenges would come again. Some nobles still questioned his presence. Other civilizations in the galaxy might not accept a human standing beside a princess. But for the first time, he did not fear those challenges. He knew that humans had a strength that went beyond weapons or technology. It was a strength of heart, spirit, and determination. And now, with Lyria by his side, he was ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at them. He took her hand, holding it gently. "I will do my best," he said. "Not because I want to impress anyone, but because I choose to stand with you." Lyria smiled, her glow reflecting in his eyes. "And I choose you, Jared of Earth," she replied softly. "You are human, and yet you are extraordinary. You are my equal, my partner, my friend, and something more I cannot yet put into words." For the first time, Jared felt the true weight of being human, not weak, not small, not accidental, but capable of extraordinary things. He had stumbled into this life, accidentally proposed, faced impossible odds, and yet here he was, accepted, respected, and trusted. And in that quiet balcony moment he realized that perhaps humans were not just visitors in the galaxy. They were a force that could change it, one act of courage at a time. The twin moons glowed above them, the city beneath sparkled, and Jared knew one undeniable truth. Life on Virelia was no longer just an adventure. It was a journey of heart, trust, and love, and he would face it fully, with the princess by his side. The twin moons hung high over Virelia, casting silver light across the palace gardens. Jared stood beside Princess Lyria, hands intertwined, hearts pounding in quiet anticipation. The city below glowed softly, alive with whispers of admiration and wonder. After everything, the accident, the proposal, the battle, the endless lessons in palace life, this moment felt like the culmination of all that had brought them together. Jared's mind raced. He had come to Virelia as a simple human explorer, clumsy and unsure. He had stumbled through alien customs, terrified by the grandeur and complexity of this world. He had even accidentally proposed to a princess, a mistake that could have ruined everything. Yet here he was standing beside her, realizing that every misstep, every fear, every moment of human imperfection had led him to this, a true connection with someone extraordinary. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Lyria," he began, voice trembling but steady. "When I first said those words, I didn't mean them seriously. Or at least I didn't know what they truly meant. But now, after everything we've faced together, I realize something. I choose you. Not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because I want to. Because being with you makes me stronger, braver, and better than I ever imagined I could be." Lyria's eyes glowed softly in the moonlight, reflecting the sincerity in his gaze. She reached up, brushing a strand of glowing hair from his forehead. "Jared of Earth," she said, her voice filled with warmth, "you have proven more than courage or cleverness. You have shown what it truly means to be human, fearless when it matters, honest when it is hardest, and willing to stand against the impossible. And in doing so, you have won my heart, not because of a mistake, but because of who you are." Jared's heart soared. He felt a mix of relief, joy, and something deeper, a profound sense of belonging. This was more than a proposal. It was a promise to face the galaxy together, to stand against danger, to protect and cherish the life they had built, and to show the universe that humanity was not to be underestimated. He knelt, something he had never imagined doing outside Earth, and looked up at her. "Lyria," he said, voice steady, "I promise to stand with you through every challenge, every battle, and every moment of doubt. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your home. Will you truly be mine, not because of a mistake, but because we choose each other?" Tears shimmered in Lyria's eyes. For a moment, silence fell over the gardens. Even the soft hum of the palace seemed to pause. Then she smiled, radiant and certain, and whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times yes. I choose you, Jared of Earth. You are human, and yet you are everything I need. You are my equal, my partner, my heart." The the moons reflected in their eyes as Jared rose, holding her close. Around them, the palace erupted in quiet celebration. Nobles who had doubted him bowed. Soldiers saluted, and citizens whispered of the human who had saved their world and won the heart of a princess. It was more than a personal victory, it was a triumph for all of humanity. In that moment, Jared realized something extraordinary. The galaxy had once mocked Earth, dismissed its people as weak and insignificant, but now through courage, determination, and heart, humans had proven their worth. Not through conquest, not through domination, but through bravery, ingenuity, and the willingness to stand for what was right. One human, in one act of courage, had shifted perceptions across an entire planet. And perhaps, the galaxy. Jared and Lyria stood together, looking out at the city that now glowed.